Hello, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Is it September already? Well, I hope you are enjoying this long weekend. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, what does boxing have to do with fish and chips? Find out when we speak to the owner of Catchweight. And municipal affairs reporter Justin McElroy considers what features make good neighborhoods great. But first, how a former mixed martial arts champ is fighting just as hard for racial justice.
5'8", weighing in 145.8 pounds, the former Bellator featherweight world champion returns with 13 professional victories alongside 3 defeats. From Port Moody, British Columbia, Canada, Julia the Juho Bud.
Now, the fight for racial justice is not something that you can win by beating your opponents physically. But one of the world's best mixed martial artists is using her high profile to promote the cause. Julia Budd is a former featherweight champ. Julia, hello there.
Hi.
And next to her is Lance Gibson, her trainer, her husband, and the owner of Gibson MMA and Health Bar in Port Moody. Lance, hello to you.
How you doing, Gloria? I'm doing good.
I am doing very well. Well, you two must be riding a little bit of a high right now. Julia, congratulations. You won the Bellator 244. Tell us all about, this is your first fight since losing your title in January. What was it like?
Yeah, it was unreal. It was so great to get back in there. And yeah, it was quite a different experience fighting during these times, during a pandemic. It was a little bit different. So it was interesting.
So you had to travel down to the States. Was there, any kind of quarantine protocol or anything like that you had to do pre-fight?
Oh, yeah. So we had to be tested before we went. And then we had to be tested every day that we were down there and quarantined, like we were in our room for, the majority of it, and just basically tested every day and socially distanced, masks, just hanging out with each other, really.
Okay, Lance, what was that? What about training up until the last minute and getting Julia, I guess, in that head game as well?
Well, it was actually good because we were actually, since March, we have a family of fighters too as well. So I have my son who fights in Bellator as well, Lance Gibson Jr., and they're actually sparring partners. So we were lucky enough to have a family member that we could train with, and because of the pandemic, you can't just have random partners. So Junior's a professional fighter, and my wife's a professional fighter, and we all just worked through this whole thing. We brought Max up into the Sunshine Coast as well when we went away, and we just trained every day. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Julia, at the the news conference after the fight, you were asked what was going through your head, and some of those moments when Lance is talking to you in the corner, between rounds, that kind of thing, you just see that intensity on your face. But in the news conference, you talked a little bit about the bigger fight, I guess, which is the fight against racial injustice. Just give us more about, the connection between those two.
Yeah, I just think that the world right now is being called to, I said, be kinder to one another and, look out for the people that right now are oppressed and not being treated fairly or equally because of their skin. And I was just saying that fire kind of all summer since the George Floyd murder, it kind of erupted the world is fighting for this. And it's been something that on the Sunshine Coast, we've been meeting once a month, talking about with our Indigenous people and my husband, my stepson, we've been meeting together and just talking about some of the issues that are around in Canada as well as the United States and just bringing kind of awareness to it. So it's something that I'm passionate about, and it helped fuel me and kind of get my fighting spirit back into wanting to, be a professional fighter and get back into the cage. So after losing my title in January, it wasn't hard to get motivated again, but it got motivated back again. And then it really fired me up when I'm seeing what's going on in the world. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, and over the summer, I know you organized a rally, Black Lives Matter related rally in the Sunshine Coast. 2,000 people came out for that. So you've got a lot of support behind you as well. Now, you mentioned your stepson, Lance Gibson Jr. And Lance, you're a retired fighter yourself. So talk a little bit more about, the kinds of conversations that you're having with your son, and especially when you go to major events like Bellator together. You're literally in the corner for your family.
Yeah, it's something that my son grew up around martial arts, obviously, since before he could even walk. So he grew up in the gym, and it's a way of life for our family. And it's the martial arts is more than just the fight. It's about helping people who don't have a voice, helping people who don't have confidence, giving them a sense of community, giving them values and integrity. And that's how we change the world. We have kids as low as 4 years old all the way up to our oldest students, 70, Maria. Yeah. So we have a sense of community, and we want to just spread goodness amongst people, and going and be able to get on the stage and have a family be able to fight internationally in front of the whole world. What's a better way of getting our voice out?
Well, yeah, you want to build some goodness. So what kind of challenges are there to doing that right now, Lance, especially for you and your son right now? The world's divided right now, and there's two sides. There's good and bad. That's all I see. So it's
not politics.
It's not politics. It's about humanity, and we just want to. I have different worries as a father, as a black father with a black son, that a lot of people don't have to worry about. And I've had to teach them that from a young age until now. I worry about my son all the time, and it's unfortunate because the way the world's going right now. But I think this is a change for the better. It gets really dark, but then the light comes. And the conversations we have him is just, he's such a good kid anyway, well, a young man now. And we just want to be positive and help people and succeed and show and be a good role model for young kids of all colors.
Well,
let alone black.
And this conversation right now is going a long way to that end as well. So thank you both very much. And here you are. You've all been in isolation since returning from the States. Julia, how are you all holding up?
We're holding up good. We've got each other, and we're just following the 14-day, staying away from everyone until we're all clear from coming back from the U.S. But we're so happy we did it. It's worth it. So it was awesome to go down there and get the win and be able to, get back in there. So.
And what's next on your competitive horizons? Any other fights?
Yeah, well, Lance Jr. we're gonna be heading back down in October, beginning of October, for him to fight in Bellator. So he's next, and then I'm hopefully gonna be up there in November. So kind of every month we'll be traveling down there.
We'll let you get back to your practicing, to your working out. It's nice to know that you can do that all in the family. Julia, Lance, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria.
Hi, my name is Momo Chan.
My name is Jolene.
Welcome to Our Vancouver.
All right, it's time for one of our favorite features of this program, and this is when we get to showcase some of the photographs that you send to us. We'll start out with this one from Walter Langer. He sent us this beautiful photo of a boat on a beach on Sydney Island. Walter, thank you. Melody Robin's Paradise captured this serene moment during a family kayak trip on Johnston Strait. Just lovely. And finally, Megan Cowan's photo just might remind you of the Vancouver Aquarium. That's because this living sculpture in Coquitlam is clearly inspired by Bill Reed's iconic killer whale statue. Thank you so much for sharing that, Megan. And do send us more. It's easy. Just email your photographs to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca, bcphotos@cbc.ca, and we can share some of them with our audience. Well, from great photographs to great neighborhoods, judging both can be very subjective. But CBC Vancouver counted almost 500,000 votes for almost 200 neighborhoods. And the winner of CBC's search for Metro Vancouver's best neighborhood is Richmond's seaside community of Steveston. Here is Justin McElroy with some of the reasons why.
What makes a neighborhood great? Well, access to water doesn't hurt. A connection to history can help. Great parks and restaurants are also nice. But what really matters is the people who live there.
Everybody is invested in keeping this community the way it is.
Truth be told, Steveston may not be Metro Vancouver's best neighborhood. Yes, there's a lot going for it, but you could say the same about Mount Pleasant, the West End, or plenty of other neighborhoods we've profiled. But in an online vote, pride matters.
I think all of us have some kind of a connection with this area, whether it be specifically the families that have lived here for generations in the past, or the industry, or the nature, or the farming, or just commercial.
And there's probably nobody with a bigger connection in Steveston than Harold Steves. His great-grandparents settled the modern neighborhood when it was just fish and farmland.
There are things that could have been better, but in the end it's worked out pretty good. There's a good balance between old and new in the community, and I think that's what people really like.
Steves has been around for so many of the fights that have maintained Steveston's feel while balancing tourism, fishing, farming, and housing demand.
Steveston has height limits, so it maintains the character of the street because the people wanted to maintain the small town community atmosphere. They fought to save the Gulf of Georgia cannery and were successful. The same thing with the Britannia shipyard. And the Steveston Museum was bought under what they called a neighborhood improvement program back in the 70s.
Or, put another way,
basically just about everything we've got here was people fighting for their community and doing it themselves.
So yes, there's great land, yes, there's great history, yes, there's great views, but a good neighborhood at the end of the day is about the neighbors. And in Steveston, they showed up to win. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Steveston.
Now, if you pass a group of people looking up in the sky, chances are you will feel compelled to do the same. What are they looking at? That simple relationship between groups and individuals is a theme in the latest series by Vancouver photographer Fang Tong. Here is Lisa Wu's profile for CBC Arts.
The tension between the ordinary and the strange has always attracted me. I like to keep the balance between surreal and the real in my work in order to force my audience into the world that I create. I consider myself a cinematic photographer, but I don't really try to tell an entire story in one image. I find it much more interesting to link my work to a question. So what I try to do is create a mood and an environment and perhaps some mystery. The new series I'm working on is called Daily Life. Each scene that I've set up will focus on some element of daily life that we don't tend to notice or pay attention to. I find this a very interesting point to start shooting with. For example, the photo I'm working on now examines the relationship between the group and individual and how groups influence us. The photo examines the human psychological tendency to follow or copy one another. In the photo, everyone is looking up, but there isn't anything in the sky. It's just an instinctual behavior to follow or copy others. Ready, look up, really look up. With my work, I'm always striving to leave an open question in order to allow the audience to discover their own answers.
Coming up, our meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff answers a viewer question: how do I identify different cloud types?
puffy, wispy, angry, a duck eating a taco. There are many different ways that we can describe the clouds we see overhead. But how about a little grade 11 geography refresher on legit cloud identification? We'll save cloud mechanic formation, the history of the cloud atlas, the future of cloud seeding for later science smarts. Super fascinating. But cloud identification itself is very interesting. It started over 100 years ago. A chemist and amateur meteorologist named Luke Howard first came up with 3 core forms of clouds: cirrus form, stratus form, and cumulus form. That's one half of the equation to identifying clouds, figuring out what 3 categories your cloud falls into. The other half is figuring out what height it's at, high, mid, or low. And then it's combining those 2 categories to form, well, over 100 different cloud classifications that are currently in the cloud atlas. Let's start off with one of my favorites, cirrus clouds, cirrus form clouds. And actually I've got a great example behind me. You can see these wispy clouds. Cirrus clouds are often known as these wispy, filamented, sort of delicate, transparent clouds in the sky. And they are often the high clouds, the cirrus high clouds. Those are the ones that are formed of ice crystals, and again, they are the highest in the sky. The second category is stratus form. These are sort of blanketed or layered clouds. So when you look up to an all-white sky, that's a stratus cloud. Again, usually layered or blanketed is the term you'd associate with a stratus form. And finally, everyone's favorite, mine included, cumulus. Cumulus are the nice puffy clouds. I think we've got some over the mountains right here. These are the big cotton ball, cauliflower, classic rabbit eating a taco, finding shapes in them type of cloud. So now that we've got those 3, once you figure out what height they're at, if they're high, then you add a cirro prefix. If they're mid, you add an alto, and low cloud are the cumulus. It doesn't get that prefix. But you can make up all sorts of combinations depending on what you see. Cirrostratus, alto cumulus, cumulonimbus, which brings me to another word we need to know. Nimbus means raining. So if you've got a cumulus cloud that is producing rain, it's automatically a cumulonimbus. You've got that blanketed stratus cloud and it's producing rain, stratonimbus. So some pretty fascinating combinations out there. I leave you with just a selection of some of my favorite cloud types. And now, your Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me a tweet. I'll try to get it answered.
Johanna, thank you very much. Well, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. It is game on for amateur sport as phase 3 of the province's reopening plan. Soccer and volleyball, hockey and basketball teams will once again be able to compete. But as Eva Yuguin-Senge reports, some of the rules are changing.
These players haven't seen much real competition for a while now. That's about to change as leagues move into phase 3 of their restart.
We are really excited to start getting back to playing in a safe and careful way. And, there will be a whole host of measures and things may look slightly different.
The province laid out new COVID-19 safety guidelines that allow sports to gradually go back to competition on Monday. Each sport is ranked for its risk of transmission based on amount of contact. For volleyball lovers, it means a return to normal. Sort of.
We are able to introduce back the concept of blocking, and actually the idea around phase 3 is because we are creating these cohorts or training on playing groups that only interact with each other, that means that when we're on court, essentially they'll be able to play just regular, normal volleyball games.
Softball, baseball, and volleyball are allowed cohorts of up to 100 people. Softball and baseball are at a particular advantage.
Softball was classified by the Ministry of Health as a low-contact sport. So along with baseball, they felt that because there is so little contact in the game, that we could have a higher cohort group and still maintain a very low risk of transmission.
Teams will have to wait 2 weeks before competing against people in other cohorts. Higher contact sports like soccer and hockey are limited to cohorts of up to 50 people. BC Hockey says despite the safety measures, registration is nearly at normal levels.
I think that shows a really strong passion and the value in our game. and there's definitely some minimal reduction within the registration. We believe that's understandable, and that other families will begin to feel a little bit more comfortable once they're educated further on how the logistics work and how things work with respect to cohorts and safety protocols.
The province is still not allowing any interprovincial or international tournaments. Spectators will be allowed so long as they maintain physical distancing and remain within the facility's capacity. Eva Yuguen-Senge, CBC News, Vancouver.
Fish and chips and boxing. Those are at least three of the passions of a person behind a new food truck initially closed by the pandemic just weeks after it opened. Well, now he's back for round two. Brian Grant is co-owner of Catchweight Fish and Chips, and he's a boxing instructor as well. Brian, hello there.
Hi, how you doing? I
am doing well. First of all, this is our first Our Vancouver segment from a food truck, and first with a mask on. So I'm glad you're adhering to safety precautions and those kinds of things. What's the story behind the name Catchweight?
That's a great question, Gloria. So catchweight is actually a term that's used in boxing or in fighting or in MMA, where you get a weight that's between two different fighters and they fight in a catchweight fight. So we thought that was kind of appropriate with my boxing background, as well, referring to the catch weight of the fish that we get. So we are using a local fish called hake, and we're doing all sorts of fun stuff with that.
Okay, well, how did you get hooked, so to speak, by both boxing and food, fish and chips?
That's a really good question, too. So I've been involved in the hospitality industry most of my life since I was a kid, about 13, 14 years old. I also then trained boxing and boxed amateur here in British Columbia. So as a person from the hospitality background, involved with Resurrection Spirits, the distillery, we kind of combined the hospitality as well as then the boxing sort of concept and came up with the idea for Catchweight.
Okay, so what have you got on the menu there in the food truck?
That is a good question, Deuce. We got all sorts of fun stuff. So today we're actually going to be showing you our 3-piece fish and chips, as well as our fish sando. You can check these out, get a little close-up of those guys there. And then we're going to be making a fish taco as well for you. We do have some additional food items. We've got an albacore tuna banh mi sandwich, a tostada, and some other fun stuff too.
Oh, no, just tell me, before you go any further, let's just go back in on the fish and chips there. What's your approach to fish and chips? Because everybody's got their own style.
We are using hake, which differs a little bit from the usual cod and or halibut that's used. It is a sustainable and ocean-wise fish that we've had a great success with deep frying and turning into these products.
Oh, my mouth is watering. You got malt, vinegar, and salt on hand there as well for the chips?
We sure do, definitely. Malt vinegar is a must, and also a house-made tartar sauce as well.
Oh, sounds amazing. That's what I miss about not having our chefs in studio with us, for sure. Okay, why don't you show us how you take us through the assembly of the taco there?
Yeah, Deuce, you ready to set up a taco here?
Oh, yes, I am.
Awesome, man. Let's do this, okay?
Do it. Your traditional Baja-style taco. We have our 6-inch tortilla that's flour, and we have nice cabbage that's been shredded very thin, and we have our house cumin vinaigrette that goes into our slot to give it a little less bite of the cabbage. We would give it a nice mix.
Oh, so you don't let the slot
that sit aside for a second.
There. Okay,
let that marinate do the work for a minute. And then we have this nice chipotle sauce that we go straight onto the bottom of the tortilla.
Sauce first, okay.
Yeah, sauce first.
And we have, when the cabbage is ready to go, we get a handful right on top, just like this.
That's going to give it a kick. And a crunch.
That little crunch too, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Always. And we have our perfectly fried Pacific cake.
Oh.
It's nice and golden brown.
Oh, so one chunk as opposed to little pieces.
And now
it's a good sized chunk of fish there for sure.
Yeah, we have our house-made pico.
So it's the house-made pico de gallo?
Yes.
Oh, I see, the salsa kind of stuff. Okay. Fresh tomatoes and onions and cilantro, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you got it, yeah. Beautiful.
Awesome sauce. That looks absolutely tantalizing. Now, it's not done.
There you go. Not quite done. There we go. Yeah.
That's nice. Then you just need lots of napkins and a good appetite after something like that, huh?
Yeah, a little cilantro, exactly. Yeah. So Doug really wanted to take the Baja Taco, do his variation on it, and I think it's turned out beautifully. I've eaten a few of these over the last few weeks since we've reopened. It's pretty hard not to, but yeah, they turned out great.
That's our Catchweight taco.
Oh, that
Wonderful.
looks fantastic. Now your truck is parked at Resurrection Spirits Distillery, so you also co-own that distillery. So what pairs well with your food, would you say?
That's a great question too. So we do a lot of different house cocktails. We make our own spirits in house, a white rye, a gin, and all sorts of other spirits. We then base those all our cocktails on those spirits. So we've done some stuff with really fresh fruit, seasonal stuff. Right now we've got a dill Collins on the menu, which has jalapeno, cucumber, and fresh dill in tall Collins glass, which I think pairs beautifully with really any of these dishes. But we've got a whole bunch of different summery drinks that we're doing right now to pair with it.
Catchweight. We know where to find you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gloria. I really appreciate it.
Hi, my name is George, and you're watching Our Vancouver.
Unschooling was something we had talked about for years, or I should say, my wife talked about, and I fought against. I never imagined a global pandemic would be the thing that got us there.
A lot of us have been streaming more films since COVID-19 hit. Pandemic Elementary is a timely, short documentary about a BC family's unconventional approach to homeschooling their children. You can watch it now on CBC Gem.
Oliver Wheeler is probably the most remarkable Canadian that no Canadian has ever heard of.
Uncover the mystery of Oliver Wheeler, the Canadian climber who discovered the doorway to Mount Everest back in 1921, but whose place in history has been largely forgotten. Wheeler's Everest features local anthropologist Wade Davis and Wheeler's great-grandson Jeff, and you can also watch this now on CBC Gem.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, coming to you from home with some big news. The Canadian Music Class Challenge is back for 2020. That's right, it's happening. That's when we challenge music teachers and students from across the country to learn a Canadian song from our list, make a video of the performance, and send it into us for thousands of dollars worth of prizes. Here's a great entry from last year.
Hey, you can look in, why the frown? You always look better when it's upside down. You say you got nowhere that you're going to. Can I go nowhere with you? Na 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 na. Can I go nowhere with you?
Nice job, All Saints Catholic School in Whitby. But of course, we are fully aware that music class is not going to look like that this year. That's why we now have 2 projects for classes to participate in, whether you're allowed to perform music together, apart, or not at all. Project number 1, if your school is allowed to sing or play instruments in person, great. Choose a song from our list, record a video, and send it in. If your class isn't in person, we have a guide to create a virtual music performance like this.
And I tried to write a symphony, but I lost the melody. Alas, I only finish as I lemonade. Anyway, I love you. That's all I have to tell you. That's all I got to say.
Nice job, Sir William Mullock Secondary in Newmarket. Okay, project number 2, which is brand new this year, is called the Canadian Music Playlist Challenge. We'll send your school a free Canadian music lesson plan developed by Music Counts Learn, and your class can submit your own Canadian playlist for a chance to win prizes and still participate with all the schools across Canada. You choose the songs. For all the details on this year's Canadian Music Class Challenge, parts 1 and 2, and how to enter, head to cbc.ca/musicclass. Registration begins on September 8th. I'm Grant Lawrence. Stay safe, keep Canadian music classes alive, and remember, we're all in this together.
Coming up, how one woman's loneliness launched a live cooking show. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, staying safe during the pandemic can be a lonely experience, but that inspired a tall, tan woman to star in her own online cooking show. Wamish Hamilton brings us that story.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cooking with Anita. Tonight's our special show.
It's another Tuesday night, and Anita McPhee is in her happy place. She's having 900 friends over for dinner, Facebook style. And tonight, she's going to show them how to cook herring roe on kelp with a twist.
You got it. We're making herring eggs tonight. In fact, we're making herring egg chop suey.
During the COVID lockdown, she posted pictures of meals she was cooking at home. Then, people began asking her what Indigenous dish she was going to make next.
And then I said, oh, would you like to have a live Bannock show? And they said, yeah, put it on Facebook Live.
She began teasing her followers, asking them to choose between different Indigenous dishes. And a show was born.
When we cook our favorite foods or our traditional foods and we share it with you, we're giving you respect. Be kind, love yourself. I love Anita. She's my partner.
Grandma Bear is a special guest on the show each week. She's as homemade as the food and as bossy as the cook.
Now she's a regular character in my cooking show. She's a puppet, and she likes to be my grandma and tell me what to do.
Like so many, McPhee did her part, isolating and keeping distant. But she struggled emotionally, and Zoom calls weren't feeding her soul.
And, I didn't know what was going to happen, and just there was so many unknowns, so I went up there, and I got really lonely.
But in Anita McPhee's case, cooking traditional Indigenous food is just the recipe for coping with isolation. Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Professional hockey players have become the latest to join the growing anti-racism movement. Playoff games, including a recent one with the Vancouver Canucks, were canceled for a few days. NHL players joined other athletes who boycotted games after the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Well, as John Hernandez reports, many thought hockey should have been put on ice earlier.
The Vancouver Canucks responded.
It was supposed to be the biggest Canucks game in years. Game 3 in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, postponed for a bigger cause.
I think it was a really important decision, and I think it was the right decision to make. We needed to do something and make a stand.
All 8 remaining NHL teams boycotting the ice for 2 days after the shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man, by Wisconsin police. Rivals on the rink standing in solidarity against racism.
We went over to Vegas and we met as a group there.
I go to war with these guys and I hate their guts on the ice, but I couldn't be more proud of these guys.
The sports cancellation started Wednesday. The NBA's Milwaukee Bucks the first to boycott. That night, the NHL decided to play on, a move that drew widespread criticism even within the league.
I don't think we should be here. I think the NHL should postpone the games. I really feel that we should be more supportive of Black Lives Matter.
Vancouver-born Evander Kane was among the loudest voices calling for hockey to be postponed.
It's not just my responsibility as a minority player in the NHL to be talking about these issues.
This morning, an emergency meeting between players, the Canucks taking a firm stance against playing.
I'm proud to say as a Vancouver Canucks fan today that the Vancouver Canucks were the ones fighting to make that stand.
Diehard fans like Tej Dhaliwal and Ryan Cattermole say the message means a lot more than a hockey game.
Kids that are playing right now, they may see what's going on at the NHL and at the NBA level and recognize that these are real issues that they need to speak up about.
The playoffs will resume on Saturday. Until then, time to reflect and stand together.
I would encourage anybody that was planning on watching the Canucks game tonight, if they do postpone the season, use that 2 or 3 hours to educate yourself.
Canucks with the lead. The Golden Knights have been pressing.
John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
What do you do when you discover tens of thousands of bees and 30 pounds of honey stuck in your building? Well, after you've calmed down, you call Barry the beekeeper, and he has been working his magic in Saanich.
Because of issues with honeybees and them being rather fragile in some circumstances, it seemed to make sense to find a way to rehome the bees as opposed to killing them. So I went online and found Barry.
So this is their new home to be. This is definitely one of my more interesting, we'll say, complex bee recoveries because of the height and the requirement of scaffolding and cutting walls.
Coming up, how a Vancouver artist is capturing people's feelings about uncertainty and calm during the pandemic. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, COVID-19 stirs up a mix of emotions in a lot of us. A local artist is helping people capture their feelings in multi-layered paintings. Jean Huang shares her process with CBC Arts as part of their series, Opening Up.
My name is Jean, and I'm an artist based out of Vancouver, BC. So that just happened. I wanted to create a series that served as an archive of our shared feelings during the pandemic. I've developed a set of questions that I ask each person when I develop the piece. The first question I have for you is based on uncertainty, and it's what colors do you think of when this word comes to mind?
I think of red and orange kind of colors that are like a little more intense, like to my eye personally, and reflect like an urgency or like a stop or like a kind of like punch you in the face kind of color.
Okay, those are really good descriptions. I'm just writing it down. I like the punch you in the face.
Sounds so aggressive. I'm so sorry.
No, I love it. The more aggressive, the better. And then the second question is, what kind of textures do you think of when you hear the word uncertainty?
Like styrofoam, fairly like rough or like coarser textures that like I'm never thinking like I want to lay in that thing or like be all up in that thing, you know?
Yeah.
So immediately when I think of uncertainty, I kind of think of death and I think about how there's so much fear around the topic, but yet we're all very uncertain of what actually lays after it all happens. I hold a lot of uncertainty around how long I'll have my parents around me.
What things do you think of with the word calmness?
I think about meditation and connecting to breath and allowing thoughts to pass by instead of fixating and like trying to control what's happening. I think about laying outside in the grass, staring up at like underneath a tree blanket, looking at like clouds going by. Like, do you know that feeling of like someone's gotten a knot out and you're like, oh, wow, it feels so much better. And I think about just being with like people that I feel extremely comfortable with, to be myself with, and not having to like put on the facade of like, I'm here to perform for these people that I'm not that close with. So I associate calm to like being the truest version of myself around people that I love the most.
I hope to continue to expand this collection throughout 2020 so that maybe one day we can look back at this and see an archive of our feelings during the pandemic.
Okay, it's time to rewind the clock with the help of our CBC archives. And while COVID-19 is dramatically different than H1N1, our experience with the swine flu in 2009 did give us a preview of the kinds of questions that people are asking today about the risks that children may face by going to school during a pandemic. Here's Chris Brown.
These Vancouver high schoolers say they know all about the swine flu and the potential to catch it.
I think they should close the schools if anyone gets swine flu.
In case other people got sick, and because it'd be a nice break.
When your book's to page. But closing schools is a drastic step with consequences, and until now, no respectable health body has suggested what the threshold should be to close a school. The World Health Organization has now come forward with a figure. First, the WHO concedes it can't offer a specific recommendation that applies everywhere, but then it goes on to say school closure has its greatest benefit very early in an outbreak, ideally before 1% of the population falls ill. At this Vancouver high school, there's 1,200 kids, so that would mean just 12 would have to come down with the swine flu before the WHO says it makes sense to send everyone else home. That appears to contradict stated public policy in just about every jurisdiction in Canada, where the plan is to only close schools in an emergency.
From a practical perspective, their theoretical recommendation applied in the real world just does not make sense.
The fact that parents and caregivers have to stay home, which could put as much as 16% additional absenteeism into the workforce, particularly into the healthcare workforce, we just think that the downsides really outweigh any particular benefits at this particular point in time.
The WHO advice appears aimed more at developing countries, where closing schools early could slow the spread of the virus and buy time to get vaccines. Canada's chief medical health officer says in other places where schools were closed, infection rates didn't seem to change much.
And the view was it really made very little difference at the end of the day.
We basically look at it, at about a 10% absentee rate.
In the end, this vice principal says that is the lowest threshold Vancouver School Board would even begin to consider closing a school. So kids here and across Canada, it seems, shouldn't count on the swine flu to get them out of class. Chris Brown, CBC News, Vancouver.
CBC Vancouver has an award-winning photographer on staff. Ben Nelms captures all sorts of images of life in our city. Here are some of his best of the week. And that is all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you'll join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. Goodbye for now.